Welcome to Teach or Not to Teach, the vlog that explores the challenges and triumphs of education.
We are here to dig into the big questions and debates surrounding education. Join us as we talk about the latest trends, technologies, and instructional strategies.
Because at the end of the day, the goal is to provide every student with the best education possible. Let's start learning together on To Teach or Not to Teach.
Hello, hello.
Hey, educator friends, welcome back.
Welcome to episode 3
of To Teach or Not to Teach.
Before we get started today, some very exciting news, a little bit of tidbit of information is our dear Meg is going to be celebrating her birthday tomorrow.
I'm so glad you could share that with everybody on our recording. Ew.
You need to be celebrated.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think maybe we celebrate the day, not how many years it's been.
Fair.
I mean, who doesn't love gifts?
I know. There was a time just the other day where she's like, we just skip over that day altogether. It's like, oh, so that means I take back your present too then. No, don't take back the present.
Nope. We're going to keep those. Keep those presents coming. All right. So yes, tomorrow is the big day.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's the big day.
But again, you should be celebrated.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. It'll be
course.
good. Well, you know, on a better note of celebrating, let's celebrate this episode.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Yeah, it is good. It's the second part 2 of To Script or Not to Script.
Yes. Last time we really dug into the curriculum and resources, the ins and the outs of all of that, kind of what that looks like. And we were really talking hard about how sometimes those scripted curriculums can really put teachers inside of a box. Creativity is minimalized, as well as kind of the flexibility and teachers' responsiveness is also kind of taken. So as we start this episode of part 2, I am posing the question to you. How do we script?
Oh, I like it. Yeah. You know, so much we see that people tell us, you know, education, we get all of the don't do this, try this, but then the how is missing. This is where the gold comes in on this episode. How do we script? How do we script in our classroom? And I think what it comes down to is we still use our district mandated resources. We're still using the curriculum. We're pulling in our favorite things. But it looks a little bit different. It looks a little bit different. So let's talk a little bit about what we use to create our own script using the scripted instruction.
Oof. Say that 10 times fast. I think the important thing to know here is when we're saying like, how do we script? We are not saying word for word. We are not posing anything where we are like, teacher says this, students respond this way. And they never
respond that way.
They never do. That is not the goal. When we say, how do we script? It is our version of like how we plan, how we develop our lesson, how we develop our units, whatever it might be. Our script is not word for word, but we do have an amazing tool that we use to help.
Yes, we have a framework. In our years in the classroom, we started to feel that uneasiness. It wasn't really working. Our kids were growing, but they weren't growing the way we wanted them to. We were coming into the classroom, we were teaching the things, it just didn't feel right. And we were trying to figure out what that was. How do we change our teaching to make it most effective for our students? And so we developed a framework called the Integrated Framework. And we use that to help us guide our, if you will, script in our classroom to better make us more effective teachers and, of course, student growth. So how do we use our integrated framework is kind of what we're going to tell you about today.
Yeah. One important thing to note with our framework is, and I guess the first level really hits on it, is it's a lot about your mindset and how you are coming into your planning, coming into education, into your instruction, whatever that might look like. It's definitely a mindset shift
Yes.
than what traditional instruction looks like. You think of how we grew up. We are 80s babies, 90s in the 90s classroom. Rolling in the tube TV on Fridays. For ours was Magic School Bus, but I know for you guys it's definitely more of a Bill Nye
Bill
situation.
Nye the Science Guy.
um, but with that whole mindset, we grew up with everything being taught in silos,
Mhm.
very segregated. We fast forward to our teacher education, college, all of that training, everything is taught in silos. You think of
Mhm.
all your methods, classes, and things, it's literally all separated and siloed out. Fast forward to getting hired and you're teaching, everything still is siloed out.
Yep.
And so, when we are going to be sharing with you and talking to you about our framework, it breaks down some of those silos. And that is where the beauty and the success that we have found comes from.
Yeah. And so when Kara's talking about silos, we're talking about readings right now, then we're going to go to math, then we're going to go to writing, and everything is broken apart.
Maybe science on Fridays.
Maybe Science on Friday with
Mhm.
Bill Nye the Science Guy. So what we are proposing to you is that we want you to very much understand that we still teach to our standards. Our
Yes.
students are getting exactly what they need in the year that they need it. It just looks different.
Mhm.
And it has given us more creativity in the classroom. It's
Mhm.
more effective. So that first level is a mindset shift that Kara was talking about, because you
Mhm.
have to have that growth mindset in order for this to kind of take place, because
Mhm.
it's a challenge. It's a challenge. You're confronting the idea of changing it up in your classroom. So our first level is confronting the norm.
Yep. We named these levels very specifically.
Purposefully.
Purposefully. Thank you. That's the
Yes.
exact word I was looking for. Purposefully, because literally all Meg and I do is we speak to teachers about purposeful planning, purposeful instruction, because if you're purposeful, you are being more
Mhm.
effective and therefore your students are growing. So with that confronting, it's literally confronting that mindset and that traditional outlook of how those subjects are taught in a traditional classroom. So we, when we were first developing it, I remember we were talking about like, well, what could we do? And you will notice on our framework, we have a little guy. His name is Ed.
Ed.
I mean, very creative.
He's cute.
He's very cute. But he's holding a bar, a weightlifting bar. And, we talked about how when New Year's comes and goes, we always talk about New Year's resolutions. And one big one is always, getting stronger, losing weight, whatever it might be, going to the gym just in general. And the first thing you have to do in order to ever start hitting that goal is to start with the mindset. You have to walk up to the bar. You actually have to, in your mind, be like, okay, I can do this. This is, what it might look like. These are the steps I need to do. You need to get yourself started. You need to take the baby steps into even get up to the bar.
Yeah. And I think what comes with that challenge is, even if you get up to the bar, you get up there, you're ready to do it, and then you fail a little bit for yourself. It
Mhm.
doesn't go as planned. You didn't lift as much as you thought you were going to do. The lesson didn't go the way you thought it was going to go.
Mhm.
And so the first thing I think as humans is we kind of want to step back and be like, oh, that was scary. I don't know. It didn't really work out. I'm going to revert back to
Mhm.
how I was doing things before. But that's where that mindset shift takes place,
Mhm.
is just kind of confronting the idea of doing things a little bit different and the possibilities of what could happen
Yes.
in your teaching and then for your students.
Absolutely. A little bit more about the first level of the framework when developing the plan, the unit, the lesson, what it might be, is we're looking at two silos, or what we would call two core subjects,
Mhm.
and putting those together in a purposeful way, as well as creating a learning experience that would enhance that content. And then we also talk about incorporating or integrating some type of arts component.
Yeah.
So we really want to bring in multiple facets to create these units and lessons that are going to reach multiple students. Like you think of a traditional scripted word for word laid out curriculum, you are maybe reaching, maybe on a good day, what, maybe 50%
50%.
of those kids, because, you know, it's a sit and get type of situation in a lot of those lessons. And so you have to think, well, are those students really being met where they should be?
Yeah.
Are they getting what they need? And so we're taking still the content that they need, the standards that we need to be hitting, and we're just we're developing them in a lesson that's a little bit more purposeful.
Yeah, because if you think about let's say you have 20 kids in your classroom, those same 50% of kids are going to get it at the beginning of the year and they're going to get it at the end of the year. You don't
Mhm.
have to differentiate as much. It just kind of works for them.
Mhm.
But then you think, we differentiate for our students on IEPs or special needs, but all of our students need some type of differentiation. We all learn so differently. And I think
Mhm.
that's why the scripted curriculum gets hard to just use that.
Mhm.
So, how do we take all of these resources and put them together? We keep talking to you about, well, it looks like this, but honestly, right now we're using Panorama.
Mhm.
It's a great resource. National Geographic has great books in it. They've got different, teacher organizing type things in there. But what Kara and I do is we take the content,
Mhm.
whatever that is, and we really love to start with science,
Mhm.
social studies, and then how do we build on that
Mhm.
to create those experiences for our students, and use the text that the curriculums may be providing us, or use the graphic organizer. Does that work for your students? And then pulling in our other favorite things that we teach with.
Yep. And again, it's a resource that you could absolutely do day by day by day.
Mhm.
However, we've noticed with our students this year and years past that just doesn't seem to be the most effective way, and we are not reaching majority of our kids in doing so. So we take what we need to teach as educators, and we mold it together with what we know they need as students, and create a beautiful
Yeah,
masterpiece.
a beautiful new script, if you will,
Yeah.
if you will. Yeah. Okay, so how do we get started on that? How do we help them, our listeners,
Mhm.
get started tomorrow in your instruction? Let's say you want to go away from the script. You don't want to script.
You want to
How do you
create your
do
own
that?
script.
Yeah, what does that look like? And still following
Mhm.
your districts or your school needs. What does that look like? What's your first step? What would you do, Kara? Your first step.
Well, you actually just kind of mentioned it. The
Oh.
first step that we do is simply, well, I guess we could back up just a little bit, is first we identify what standards need to be taught and when.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
it just comes down to that. Now, I know there are some districts out there that I see it as fortunate where you get to kind of map that out yourself. We are in a situation where the district has already mapped that, which, it's one of those things where that's fine, and we work with that. Um, and so that's the first step, honestly,
Absolutely.
and we're not just talking about reading or writing standards. We're
Ooh.
also talking about science and social studies standards, as well as math.
Mhm.
Math can be kind of a tricky one. It feels like an outlier, which sometimes it needs to be, because, like we said, you're not going to force something that's not there. You want to make it purposeful. But we still do look at math, because there are times where it beautifully aligns with
Yeah.
the other content that we are teaching.
Yep. That's a great first step.
Mhm.
And I think, finding something that's fun for you to teach, stepping outside your comfort zone a little bit, confronting the idea of what can I do differently that's not written in this curriculum.
Mhm.
There's so many great educators out there. We're constantly on the internet searching, like, how can we modify this for us? But, I'm sure if you're into an idea, you have a curriculum idea, a content idea, just find something creative that you could do
Mhm.
with your students this
Mhm.
next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what comes after identifying your standards?
Well, then you want to kind of like backwards map.
Ooh.
I know, that's been a thing before, but it's still very important. We want to have an end goal for our students.
Mhm.
What's the end goal for your students, and how are you going to get them there? What are the steps that you need to get them to the end goal? So you're following kind of that idea of the curriculum, but you're modifying it to fit the needs of yourself and your students.
Mhm.
So where do they need to go, and how can you break those steps down to best meet both you and your students?
Yeah, absolutely. Fun fact is we
Mm,
do actually have some free resources on our website for this planning with the framework. So if you want to go check that out, we actually have a free sample planner as
mhm.
well, which aligns with the framework as well. So if you want to go check that out, please do so. Integratedk12.com. So it's there free for educators to grab and use
Yes,
because we are simply wanting to help and trying to help educators develop their own script to feel successful in the classroom.
absolutely.
Mhm.
We want you to script.
Yeah. One thing I just realized,
Ooh,
Meg, is you kind of skipped over the other two levels of the framework
I
and went
did.
straight into the planning phase.
I did. I went straight to the planning
But
phase.
that's okay because we're just gonna real quick,
Let's circle back.
we're gonna circle back.
Circle back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Ed has confronted the bar in his journey of this. And
Yeah.
so we have two other levels of our integrated framework, because integration doesn't happen there's not one way to do it.
No. I was just telling Meg, we were talking before we started recording, and I honestly I remember the day that we were like, there's more than one level. Integration is not just a one plateaued
Yeah.
situation. Like it is like an ebb and flow, and we're like, there's levels. And so then that is how literally this framework was born and started to be created. And so when we're going to actually share this with you, but one thing we want to have you keep in mind is these levels are never meant to be stagnant.
No.
They are just like when you go to lift the bar, it is meant to consistently move up and down, whether you're moving with time frame, whether you're moving with student needs and abilities, whether you're moving just because
Content changing.
and the purposeful matching, it differs with the level. So just know that, because if you lift the bar up high
Yeah.
all the time, you're going to get worn out. And if you never lift the bar off the ground, progress isn't going to be made either. So
Yeah. So if you are viewing this with us, these are our different levels. So we have Ed, he's confronting the norm. That's taking, two of those core content together, reading and science, writing and social studies, and figuring out a way to put those together that best meets the needs of your students. And then our next level is challenging the norm.
Yes. This is where you have really, you're like, I'm going to do this. We're going to start breaking these silos down. We're going to start planning and scripting in a different way. This is where that challenging the norm comes into play, because that's exactly what you are doing. You are challenging how we grew up in the classroom. You're challenging, our traditional training of what instruction looks in the classroom. And so, and this honestly, after all of the work Meg and I have done, this is where we kind of tend to live. This is kind of our fallback spot. And it's just because with doing this work and seeing the success, it's just become almost our norm.
Yeah, it really
I
is
mean,
our norm.
it's our norm, but it looks very different than the traditional classroom. But challenging the norm, you're looking at three core subjects. So, integrating the science, reading, writing, or social studies, science and writing, or whatever that might look like for you. It's three core subjects, as well as still incorporating some classroom learning experiences to enhance the content, as well as the arts and technology.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, gosh, challenging is such a perfect title for that, because it's challenging, for us as educators, like how can we put this together to make it make most sense? And then challenging as in you're challenging your students and that different, I just love that one.
Yeah.
Our last level, Ed is working real hard. He's working real hard. He's sweating because he's disrupting the norm. Now, we're not going in and disrupting the classroom. We're not making a big mess. Disrupting the norm is more so you're changing it up in your
Mhm.
classroom. You're changing it up in your classroom.
This is when, you know, your classroom door is open, you're doing your thing, kids are in the middle of it, and you have these, you know, what's happening over there situations, because your instruction looks different, but yet it's purposeful, engaging, fun, and students are growing. Disrupting, we named that purposefully, but we also want to clarify that, yeah, like it's not that, you know, we're going in and making a mess or doing anything different. It is just simply because the script or how you've planned and what your instruction looks like is very different than the traditional model.
Yeah, but I will say, I love our disrupting the norm units when we can
Mhm.
put everything together. We're putting math is working,
Yep.
writing is working, reading is working, and then science is taking the front row, social study, you know, whatever that is, that's all coming together. And the beauty of it is some of your reluctant students
Mhm.
that do not want to write, that do not want to sit down for math, that always go to the bathroom when it's reading time. They are so engaged. They're so
Mhm.
engaged. They're loving it. The content is sticking. Those reading strategies are hitting home. And you just, as an educator, you just feel so empowered, I guess,
Yes, yes.
because your students are making the growth and you're seeing those light bulb moments, as
Mhm.
cliche as that is, and it just works. It just works. But
Yep.
that's why it's called disrupting the norm
Yep.
is we cannot be disruptive all the time in our classrooms.
Mhm.
Like Kara said, we're going to be exhausted. We
Mhm.
can't do that, but it's when it works, it works. When it's
Yeah.
purposeful.
I was gonna say, and
Oh,
sometimes it's just not, it just doesn't fit.
mhm.
It does not purposefully go together, and we have learned you can't force it,
Yeah.
and it has to have that natural story behind it, and it has to be able to fit together purposefully. And like she said, what's really cool is when you hit that disrupting the norm level, when you plan it, when you script it, when you start implementing it throughout your day, it's just one continuous day of
Mhm.
learning. And it's not, oh, we're going to stop and do our writing time now. Oh, that's 10 minutes is up. We're going to go on to math. Because sometimes when that happens, everything can feel very
Choppy.
choppy
Mhm.
and discombobulated. And you think of transitions and the time that takes and all of those factors, you know, that we think of as educators go into that. And so when you have a day and multiple days in a row of that disrupting the norm, we call it our integrated workshop in our classroom.
Yeah.
When you have those days and weeks of that disrupting the norm level happening, it is just, it's phenomenal. It's
Oh,
like
it's
one
so
of those,
fun.
it's one of those things as educators that like you get like nerdy excited about because it's like, oh my gosh, the learning that's happening is so good. And like Meg said, behaviors are
Ugh,
down, the
yes.
engagement is up. And when that happens, what of course happens?
Growth.
Student growth, knowledge is gained, confidence is built. You can tell those kids
I know.
you know, a little extra pep in their step. They're feeling proud and confident in what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think we sold them on that. I mean, if you don't want to try it now, I don't know. I don't
Man.
know. So how can you get started tomorrow? Like Kara said, our website, we have a free planner on there if you want to pick that up and download it for yourself. Also on our website, under our blogs, we have written each level out previously. So if you want to read into that a little bit more, and of course, there is a blog attached to this TNT, to Teach or Not Teach episode. So we're trying to give you as much resources as you can.
Mhm.
Go be creative.
Yeah.
We just want you to give it a go. And we'd love to hear if
Yeah.
you've tried something and you're like, I tried this, this is what happened.
Mhm.
Shoot us an email. Shoot us an email, find us on social media.
I was also going to say on our social media, there are some posts and some reels that are on there that have different levels attached to it. So, like, you know, one of them might say, we've been working on the disrupting the norm level, such and such, and you'll see some photos and things. So, um, they don't have a ton of like detailed information, but you can at least visually see what is happening in those different levels if that's helpful to you as a learner. So yeah, like
Ugh.
again, and also if you're wondering, you have questions like, how does this work? How do we do this? Shoot us an email, shoot us a message on social. Like we would be glad to help and get you pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. And we always have our integrated cohort. We have a
Yes.
great group of educators that work with us all year long, doing this work with
Mhm.
us together. We meet once a month. We create units with them. We break down standards. We create those learning experiences that Kara's
Yeah.
been talking about. That's for later episodes.
I know.
But we're here. That opens up in August.
Mhm.
And we take on, a few teachers every year and work through it. And it's just been so much fun with that.
Yeah.
So
So if you're interested in that,
yeah, it's
let
on
us
also
know.
on our website. You can
It
go
is.
take a peek at that under the cohort, integrated cohort. So yeah, so leaving this today to script or not to script. We hope that we have given you valuable information that you will choose to script in your own way.
Mhm.
And find that creativity for yourself in the classroom and so that your students can feel
Yes.
success.
Create your own script, find your voice as an educator, go empower your students because the work that you put into it is absolutely worth it, and you will see the value and the growth tenfold.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another To Teach or Not to Teach.
Bye, guys.